Hey, dear Tyler, good morning. And how are you doing? I really hope you're fine. I hope you're good. I hope everything is going on well. Well, I'm actually recording this Sunday morning, but it's going to be released on Monday. Right? It's going to be released on Monday. This just before me getting ready to move for my brother's introduction. So I'll be traveling soon. But I just wanted this to be ready by Monday. I'll be up early Monday morning, by God's grace, to be heading back and all. But it's all good. So, like I said, the final episodes for this year would just be about me, sharing the various lessons that I've learned within the year 2022. The last episode we shared 5, and I said that we may probably have up to maybe 4 other episodes apart from that. But as it stands now, I've got written down about 20 things that I learned in 2022, and I shared 5 last week. I'll just do a short recap. The first is that God is good, right? I experienced the goodness of God in large amounts, very, very evident ways. God is good, and that any negativity that I ever experienced was not an extension of His hand, but probably something that I did, or maybe a trial or something. But God is intrinsically good. He is absolutely good. And then the second thing is that plans work, that it's very, very important to have plans, and stay with the plans, stick to the plans. It's very, very important that you create plans and targets for everything that you're doing. The third one is friends are valuable. I spoke about how many friends helped me within this year. Some defended me, some provided, some reached out to me in various ways. Amazing people, right? And so it's very important to value friendships. The fourth thing is that it's only impossible if you don't try. I learned that this year, that anything you're not willing to try will always remain an impossibility. And I spoke about some certain things that I put to plan, put to action, things that seemed pretty difficult or impossible. And as I started moving, things got better. And then finally, the fifth thing was, don't worry about the past. Don't worry about the past. And, just shared briefly on how worry just keeps us in one spot, right? And there's no need to worry over what you cannot change. If you cannot change it, then don't worry about it. Right? So those are the 5 things that we spoke about, rather that I shared. And I really believe, and I hope that it blessed you immensely. I really do hope that it blessed you immensely. And so I'm going to continue with the next 5, right? The next 5 is, so number 6, that is on its list, but then the first for today is, it's not as bad as you imagine. It's not as bad as you imagine. Now, this year for me started on a very, very terrible note. I thought that I would break down. I made some very irrational decisions along the line of 2021, and somehow at the beginning of 2022, it came straight to haunt me. And I really, really believed that I wasn't going to be able to make it through the year. I thought some terrible things were going to happen. I really thought some terrible things were going to happen. And here I am, December. And every single thing that I thought of, none happened. Concerning that issue, I may not be able to talk about it now, but concerning that issue, not even one happened. I remember how I spent the first few months of January, February. I know I was doing Dear Tyler, and trying my best to encourage myself, get engrossed in Dear Tyler as an endeavor, but so many things were bothering me, and I really, really thought that things would just become terrible. Now we've got a few weeks left, probably like 2 weeks to the end of the year, and those things didn't happen. Those things did not happen. Now that is such a big lesson for me, and I know how originally, maybe because of some certain things, I would have panicked, but I've learned to understand that things will never be as bad as you imagine. I saw a little graphic work about your imagination and then reality. So in terms of maybe fear or uncertainty, right? And it was like a major circle, like a very big circle. And then just a little quadrant, not up to a quadrant, just a little part of it. I think it's called a quadrant or so. But just a little part of it, of that circle, was given to reality. And then the rest, the other shaded part, was given to imagination. And it just showed how, in reality, that we make things big by overthinking about them. We truly make things big by overthinking about them. And I took out, there were days when I really spoke to people, and we spoke about how they had certain fears, and somehow how we started like an encouragement process, and over time it wasn't really as bad as we had imagined, right? So that's something that I've learned, and I'm going to take like really, really serious. And it's something that I feel that is very important for you too, Tyler. It's not as bad as you imagine. Trust me, it's not. It could be bad, yes. There may be repercussions, there may be things or penalties for it. But I really do believe that your imagination has a way of magnifying or enlarging some certain things. It's not that bad, truly, right? And having that mindset would really, really help. Having that mindset, Tyler, would really, really help. The next, which is the second for today, but number 7 on the list, is I'm not perfect. No, I'm not. I'm not perfect. I am not perfect. And so, being in a group, being part of an organization, being part of a system, it's easy to realize the flaws in people. Very easy to realize the flaws in people. It's, for instance, let's just take, for example, for those of us that watch football, there are many times when you see a player doing something and you're like, okay, shoot the ball, or why didn't you pass here, And we become highly critical of people's actions, people's behavior, or people's decisions, right? And we're like, can't you just shoot the ball? Can't you pass, and all of those things. It's easier to find the flaws in people until you enter the system too. And so somehow when you just get into the football pitch, you find out that you're making the same mistakes. You find out that somehow the position you were in before gave you a better view of the situation. And once you entered into the pitch, you've realized that your view had been absolutely cut short, and you tend to understand the level of skill it takes to even play, as a footballer. That's just a general example, right? Just an example. And so I realized that I'm not perfect. There were a lot of flaws that I saw in people, but I didn't see the flaws in me. And so it took a lot of people speaking to me or me being in certain situations to understand that, man, Benga, you are flawed. You are highly flawed. You may be intelligent, you may be well-spoken, you may have, a very good way of articulating yourself, right? You may be critical in your thinking, you get very vast in understanding, have a good way with words, and your perception will be high. And so sometimes, because you are in a relaxed state, Binga, you tend to make the best of decisions or create the most ideal situations, right? And until I now entered those situations, that's when I now get to realize that, man, Binga, you're flawed and you have like real issues. There are things that you're dealing with, really, really things that you're dealing with. And so it's an eye-opener for me that I'm not perfect. And I think what it helped me do is to also understand that people are not perfect. And if I would desire people to forbear with me, to forgive me, to understand, to create some space for my humanity, then it's something that I should be able to do, to create space for their humanity. I realized that I was very critical of a lot of people. Maybe it's because of the perfectionist side of me. I realized that I spent a lot of time not really celebrating what's the word now that I would use? The wins. But then I was more critical of the losses. And so I magnified them, but it was absolutely unfair. It's not correct. It's not good. And so it's something that I decided to work on. I've understood that I'm not perfect and I need time to grow and I need help. And so I should be able to extend that same courtesy to other people, right? So we're not perfect. We're flawed human beings. And that's why we need the Spirit of God at each time. And when people overstep boundaries or they do some certain things that you feel that are improper, remember that you may probably be in their shoes one day. And so how would you want them to respond to you? If the response that you're going to give is going to be harsh, it's going to be, overly critical, or probably demeaning in any way, ask yourself, is that how you would want to be responded to? Right? And so choose to do the right thing, Tyler. The next, number 8, it's a very painful one for me. I can't save everyone. I can't save everyone. I've had a very tough year. A very, very tough year. On a lot of fronts. I had a very tough year. But let me start with financially. Financially, this year was the toughest for me because I don't think I really got a grip of my finances. It was more of like hand to mouth and, just trying to get basic things together. And I had to be very honest with myself, like, okay, hey, Binga, what got you into this position? And I found out that throughout the month, I was thinking of how I could solve people's problems, even the problems that were not of my concern or were of no concern to me, rather, and or people's needs and stuff. The empathic side of me wants to be the one to reach out to people and, just make them feel better and, give hope. And some might put me on a lot of financial duress to the point that I made a lot of financial mistakes and, really just didn't make the right decisions. It's terrible when you try to save people and then you end up needing to be saved. It's terrible. And I think I've experienced it excessively this year. It was really hard for me when I couldn't reach out to somebody recently because the Binga that I know, or the Binga that I typically would go heaven and earth to look for means. But I had to come to terms with the fact that, Oma Binga, you can't help everybody. No matter how much you try, you can't. You can't save everybody, and that's fine. You have to be okay with it. Sometimes you have to allow somebody else to do it, and sometimes you have to allow God to be God. You cannot be the answer to everybody's prayer, no matter how much you try. And I think that that's something that you should take into consideration, Tyler. God is helping us to have a heart that reaches out to people. But just like the parable of the talents, he gave to each of them according to their several ability. There's what you can do, and there's some things that you can't do. And it's okay. You can learn, you can grow into such responsibilities, you can grow into such skills. But to put yourself under such duress because you want to reflect the goodness of God, by all means, you do yourself more harm than good. And that's the honest truth, right? So understand that you can't save everyone. I've come to understand that I can't save everyone, in as much as I want to. I can't save everyone. But one day I hope that I would be able to answer enough questions of people, or meet the demands of many people, because of the way God will bless me. But right now, I'm not in the capacity to do it. So I do what I can. And, learn to be honest with people about your abilities. If you can, fine. If you can't, just say you can't, and then just let the people be. I learned something. I think it was from Eleanor Roosevelt. I think she was the one that made the statement. She said that you are responsible for your explanation, but you're not responsible for people's interpretation. It could be Eleanor Roosevelt or someone. But I think it really helped me. Or I think Eleanor Roosevelt said, you cannot be intimidated without... People cannot intimidate without your permission. But I don't know who exactly said that, but I think it's a very, very powerful statement. You get... It's a very, very, very powerful statement. And so, don't overdo. Don't find a reason to give people... try to be nice in the eyes of people, right? Just explain yourself and leave the interpretation to them, what they desire or what they want to think about you, right? The next, number 9, which is the 4th of this episode, right? Alright, so the next thing I learned, it's easy to become the monster you preach against. Oh, it's easy to become the monster you preach against. So, this is a Dear Tyler episode, and there were many episodes that I shared, right? And I thought I shared from the point of having figured it all out. And gradually I now found out that I was literally becoming the very thing I was speaking against. So let's take, for instance, maybe I spoke about anger, right? And I gave all the right tips of how to avoid anger or to avoid violent outbursts, and all of that. Then gradually I now found out that I started exhibiting those very same things, that the principles that I taught, or that I shared with other people in the community, I wasn't actually living by them. Right? So that's an example. And so I realized that becoming the monster that you preach against is really not hard if you do not make a conscious effort, if you do not make a conscious decision to carry the same principles that you have spoken or you have shared to do, right? And you don't put them into action. Right? So just like scripture will say that, do not just be hearers of the word, but then be doers. It's your knowledge about a matter has absolutely no benefit to you if you do not also engage that very knowledge and put it into action and create something out of it. It's very, very easy, like I said, to become the monster that you preach against. Right? Very, very easy to become that monster that you preach against. And so I found myself that there were many times I was slipping into certain things that I had encouraged people over. I'd be like, okay, hey, you can do this. Can you imagine you can do this? And then maybe not immediately, but maybe after some time, I find out that I am doing exactly what, that they were doing. I was going against the very things that I said. And I had to pull myself together, and I was like, hey, no, Binga, come on. Like, you have to be very deliberate about the principles that you share. They would mean absolutely nothing until they're acted upon. They'll mean absolutely nothing to you, Tyler, until they're acted upon, right? So it's easy to criticize, people who do some certain things until you find yourself in that position. And if you've not fortified yourself with the discipline of obeying the principles or staying true to your standards, you'll find out that you'll become victim of the very same thing, right? So it's easy to become the monster you preach against. And then finally, right, which is number 10, but 5 of this episode, everyone deserves a second chance. Everyone deserves a second chance, including me. This year I learned to forgive. I learned to forgive people for things that they did years ago, things that they did within a present situation. I really, really had to learn to forgive. This year was laden with a whole lot of offense triggering situations. There were a lot of things that could have created resentment. In fact, there was this very, very close person to me that I thought I'd forgiven over something. And then over time, I realized that I still had a very, very large struggle with accepting the person. And I realized that, that I had not completely forgiven the person. And I had to ask God for help. And I was like, hey, Lord, all right, you really need to come through for me at this time. And you really need to help me. You really need to help me. Everyone deserves a second chance. There was this episode that I shared, Another Second Chance. And this is my philosophy, right? This is how I've decided to take things and decided to do things. It's not a law, but I believe for me, how I do things is if I forgive you, I clean the slate, right? So that there is no past occurrence. And that action helps me to always give you another second chance. Now, so for some other people, they will be like, no, there must be a limit to it. And I respect your perception and all. So irrespective of how many times another second chance may be, we must understand that everyone deserves a second chance. Everyone deserves an opportunity to right it wrong, to make better decisions, well informed decisions. You understand? We can't make the mistakes of people. We can't define people by their mistakes. Give them another chance. And I've learned to do that. People that have, messed up and failed me on certain times, I'll give you another chance. You come through for me, that would be important. And also because I would want people to forgive me. I would want people to forgive me and also give me another opportunity to do better. And I've also learned to forgive myself. I had to come to the point where I could, say, yeah, Binga, you really messed up. And what you did is absolutely wrong. It's absolutely uncalled for. And, just be okay and say, I forgive you, Binga, so let's move on, right? So this is very important, right? These are the 5 lessons for today. I'll just recap on them. It's not as bad as you imagine. Trust me, the things that you fear are not as grievous as you imagine them to be, right? So don't let it get the best of you. Don't let it sap you off of energy. I'm not perfect. We all have flaws, and understanding that would help us relate with people better. I can't save everyone. I have my abilities. I have my strengths. I have my capabilities, what I'm able to do through any means, and I should be comfortable in that while I trust God to grow. It's easy to become the monster you preach against. That no matter how many principles and how many things you know, if you don't put them to action, you can actually become the very evil you preach against. And then finally, everyone deserves a second chance. Everyone deserves a second chance, right? Including you. So I really hope that this episode blessed you. Hopefully by Wednesday, you're going to get the next 5. And Friday, the next 5. And probably Saturday. Or Saturday, Sunday, I don't know. But we'll get them as they just come, right? So please don't forget to share this episode with other people. And yeah, I would also really, really love to know the things that you have learned in the year, right? Remember, I said be deliberate about writing things down and going through an evaluation of your year. Just pen down the things that you've learned and everything, right? And if need be, which I believe would be, go for a retreat, right? And ask God to help you through all those situations, right? So this is me signing out, Tyler. Remember that I love you, I believe in you, and I'm always, always rooting for you.